So we've got a Husqvarna ST230P. Customer says he left gas in it last year, now it won't start. I haven't done anything to it yet, haven't checked it out or anything, but I'm going to show you what to do to diagnose and get this thing taken care of. First thing I like to do is check the oil. Now I've already done this. It does seem a little bit low because this unit, the skid plates, are really worn down, so the unit's sitting like this. When I checked it at the lower front other side at the dipstick, it was not leaking out or anything like that. It's a little bit low, so I'll top that off, and it looks like it could use changed also. But the most important part is it doesn't smell like gas. A lot of times the carburetors will flood into the crankcase. They'll smell like gas and stuff like that when you go to check them, and if you run it like that for any period of time, you're gonna ruin your unit. So that's the first thing you always want to check when you're doing anything with this. Now this is an LCT engine. They put these on a lot of Husqvarna and other units. Basically the same Honda clone as everybody else uses anymore. Same block as what Honda used to use, and everybody uses these. So this is a PW2HK18850. Now, let's see if we can't fire this thing up. Kind of go from there. So we're gonna put this on. Well, yeah, so it looks like this piece is on the wrong side, so I wonder if he's tried messing with this thing. Oh, look at that, we got a bolt that's just kind of hanging there. So it looks like the customer may have messed with this at some point. Not sure exactly what he did to it, but to start it, the choke should be here, the throttle should be here, and this piece should be to the other side, I believe, to select whether it's rabbit or turtle. So let's go ahead and well, it fired up, so that's good. I didn't prime it or anything. Looks like it may want to stay running. If we keep it all the way on choke, we could probably get that to happen. Obviously you don't want to run it like that, but from there, you know that you're getting spark, you know that you're getting some fuel. Now if it wouldn't start, the first thing you'd want to check is your spark. You'd want to go ahead and either pull the plug out. If it was dry, you could hold it against the side here and see if you're actually getting physical spark to the unit. Now you do want to make sure that your key's all the way in, your run switch is on, that you're on start and on choke, or on start and on rabbit when you're trying to start the thing. Give it a couple primes, don't over prime it, but as long as you're doing that and it's not starting, you may not be getting spark. So I'd go to that first, check your spark. If you're getting spark but you're still not getting fire, you're probably not getting fuel if it feels like there's compression when you're pulling it over. Now, as you pull it over, you should be able to kind of feel when it gets to that compression stroke. So, at this point, I'm going to check the fuel real quick and see what it... Yeah, so the fuel doesn't smell real good. He said that it was left in the entire year, so it's a pretty common issue with something like this. When you're seeing the choke, seeing it run on choke like that and react like that, that it's a carburetor issue. So at this point, basically what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean the carburetor on this thing to get it back up and going. Get a little better view here, get a little closer. So we're going to take the 6 bolts out of the front. There's 2 here on the carb, 2 on the muffler, and then 2 on the front of the unit. This is a 10 millimeter is what we're using to take those off. And if you pay attention while you're taking them out, it looks like they're all the same size. Yeah, so all the ones except for the one here. This one's longer, but all the rest of them are the same size. So once that's off, you can use a screwdriver to pry this upwards. Now you don't need much to get that off. That shouldn't take hardly anything. Prying under it a little bit, and then also the same thing with your throttle piece. That shouldn't take much to get off anyway. You don't need hardly anything to do this. You really just need a pair of needle nose pliers, a screwdriver to get inside the jet, and then something to clean it with. We use a wire loom out of just a regular old brush sometimes, out of a wire brush. Brass works best so it doesn't scratch the brass jets and things like that, but some people use a lot of different things, Q-tips, basically anything you can use to get the stuff out of the carburetor is fine. So you want to move this muffler up and out of the way. And if you look on the bottom side, it's hard to see from this angle, but if we look on the bottom side, there is the primer line is being held everything together right now. So you can just pull that straight down and it'll come straight off. Well, it came off the primer itself this time, so no big deal. But that'll give us everything free at that point, I believe, to come up and off. So you gotta kind of guide it around, otherwise it gets kind of caught on the muffler and stuff. Now you can take everything off the backside, but it's kind of a pain to do it that way. Now everything's free. So at that point you can just pull it off to the side, get everything out of the way. Sometimes these wires are on the back side of the fuel line, I believe, when they originally come. So I don't know if this has been off or what, but if that's the case, you can kind of just hang it down here until you get your front off and until you get your fuel line off and kind of work them around. It doesn't really matter how they go back together as long as they're not in the way or crushed by anything. We're at the carburetor here now. We can go ahead and take the two pieces off the front. Those are also just 10 millimeter, and it doesn't matter which way they go back on. All right, and then deflector plate. And then from there, this piece needs to come off, but if you go to pull it towards you, you can't without the carburetor coming also. So if you get a pair of pliers you can use a pair of pliers or you can use a screwdriver, either way. But you want to try to separate the carburetor. Now that just comes straight off, that just holds the spark plug in place, and that you don't really have to take that off. You can also take the spark plug wire out. But if you get right in between the carburetor and the plastic piece in back and just pry, you can hear that broke free. But this carburetor has to come towards you in order to get this piece off. So once it comes towards you, this piece will come straight off. I like to just put that off to the side. It doesn't matter which way it goes either, it's interchangeable. But I like to put everything off to the side the same way it came off. That way I know how it goes back together if it matters. In any situation, I know how it goes back on. Gets that off nice and easy. Now the little clip off to the side, right here. All you have to do is push that or pull it towards you, and it comes off. Your governor linkage will come straight up and out, and the spring will come after that. It just pulls straight up and to the left. So now, once we get the fuel line off, and what we're gonna do with the fuel line is we're gonna go ahead and drain the fuel at this point. No matter what, if you don't know the origin of the fuel, don't know how long it's been in there, or if it's been in there and it's not ethanol free, just go ahead and drain it. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be fine in your car or in something like that, but it's not gonna be okay in these small engines. Yeah, it doesn't look horrible or anything like that, but it doesn't smell great. So now that the carburetor's completely off, we can show you how to clean this thing up. So we did go ahead and tip up the front just to let that fuel tank drain all the way, as the fuel outlet comes off of the back of the tank here, and it was sitting so far forward. Anyway, we got the carb here. And what we want to do, you want to make sure this whole front throttle plate is able to move. Now a lot of times people won't check that. They'll put it back on and say, hey, why is it running so fast? Well, because your throttle plate's stuck open. You know, if it's stuck at full, it's not going to slow down even if the governor tries to grab it, because it's so jammed up. Now you can spray with carb cleaner both the top and the bottom and kind of work it back and forth. It should come right out of it. 10 millimeter to take the bottom off also. And it actually doesn't look horrible on the inside here. I was wondering if maybe he cleaned it up, but I don't think so, because down in here you can see all kinds of gritty stuff. Nothing too major, but basically we want to get all that out of there and get this thing 100% cleaned up and back into action. Now along here along your float. See, there's all kinds of stuff along the float also. Along the needle and seat, that's one of the most important parts, is right along these 4 tabs here on the outside. You want to make sure you can scrape those with your fingernail, or you can go ahead and clean them with a wire brush. Now, you don't want to use the wire brush to the tip, but you can get the rest of it. Just wire brush all that stuff off of there. Get all that green slime, all that varnish, anything that's on this needle, you want that all off of there. Anything that's left over is going to cause an issue down the road if it's not going to immediately. So if this needle and seat gets stuck, you'll run into an issue where the fuel is just going to keep running right past and run into your crankcase. So you're not going to want that whatsoever. So now that that's all cleaned up, we can go ahead and get the float. And if this has got any fluid or anything in it, you know that it's not working right and you want to replace it. So you can use carb cleaner. We use gum out carb cleaner for pretty much everything. Brass wire brush works great on all of it. Anything that's on here, make sure it's all 100%. Next, we want to go ahead and get the main jet out. So down through here is the main jet. You want a screwdriver that's big enough to fit down in there, but you don't want something that's too wide where you're going to ruin the threads, because that is where the bolt screws down into. So you can ruin the outside threads of the unit if you do that. So you want it just wide enough to where it fits down in there, but you don't want something too skinny where when you go to try to take this out, the brass jet is going to get stripped out. So what I like to do is I like to push in from both sides and then turn. Now that was pretty difficult, but if you push and turn, it makes sure that that screwdriver is not going to pop up out of that jet and strip out, because as soon as that happens, basically replace the carb if you strip that out. So push in and turn at the same time until it loosens up. It does not screw out all the way till the end, but once you get it out a little ways, you can lightly hit it down. Sometimes that'll work and sometimes it won't. Now if it's real hard to hit out, what you can do is down through here, if you go through the choke side, you can see pretty well. Oh, that didn't work. That was my throttle. I was moving up my choke. But you can see right down through the middle here, you can see the jet sticking up. So that's the jet right in the center down at the bottom. So take it and push, and once it gets down a little bit, usually if you hit it on something, you don't want to hit it too hard because then you'll damage the outside and you won't be able to thread it in again also. Alright, so we're having some difficulty, no problem. Let's go ahead and spray it with some carb cleaner down through there. See if we can't get that freed up. I'm going to go ahead and screw it back in again. And this is just to get everything freed up. Now you can hit the bottom of it on some wood or something like that, just so the wood will be damaged, as opposed to, you know, right now I'm hitting it on metal with just a, see, then it pops right out. So there is some pieces of some little green in there. That's from ethanol buildup, and it looks like these jets are clogged pretty bad. So what we're gonna do, clean that up with this brass wire brush. Now you can use torch tip cleaners or anything like that. We do have some nice torch tip cleaners that we use if we need them. And if you take a real small one, you should be able to go through each of these jets all the way through. Poke those out. Should poke out real well. And you don't want to widen them or anything like that, but you do want to go through them and get them clean. If you don't, you won't have a good spray out of it. The unit won't run right. So these other ones are a little bit small for that. Now, one of my cleaning tricks that I use a lot on these is I just pull a wire loom out of the wire brush. Makes it nice and simple to just poke down through and go all the way through one at a time with your wire and clean out the smaller jets in your emulsion tube. One by one. Make sure all those are 100% clean. Now when you use, if you use carb cleaner at that point, what you can do is you can spray it. You can hold it, your finger over the edge, and you can spray it. You should get an even spray out of there everywhere. And we are. It's working great. Spray that off real well. And then now on the main jet, this is the most important jet out of all. If you look down through there, Once I blow it out, you should be able to see a perfect circle, and we can, so that's good. But I don't think it's probably all the way cleaned out if I had to guess, because this thing wasn't running real well. So I'm going to take a smaller jet, or a smaller cleaner, and I'm just going to run it through there. Now you can use a micro drill bit or something like that if you know your sizing. I think on this 291 we use like a 40 or 41 thousandths drill bit on this. You want to make sure on the back side also all that green gunk and stuff is out of there. Everything in this area is very important. Get it all cleaned off. So, wire brush. And again, this brass wire brush works very well. Makes it very easy to get everything cleaned off. So one of the things that's easy also with the wire loom, if you take one of those, you can grab and you can kind of twist it together or keep it together. Ow, and poke yourself real bad. That hurts a little bit. But you can just kind of twist it like that, and that cleans the inside real well without doing any damage. You can do that to both sides. And you can also do it to the outside. And then we're nice and cleaned up. Now, the main spot where your needle and seat sits, I like to use the same thing to clean there. That's where the needle comes up and sits in the seat. So we're going to clean the seat area, and then all along the brass there. Makes it super easy. So just run that up and down and all around. And then we can get also here, clean that all off real well. I think we've got this pretty good so far. Clean it all out with carbon choke cleaner. All your jets, all your passages through here. You can spray everywhere. Not going to hurt anything. And then we've got your pilot jet, which sits under here. So if this is a governor stop, we can take that out, and then this piece just pries up, and then your pilot jet pries out. So one side or the other. That one was a little difficult to come out. Normally they're a little easier. But if you take one of your pieces of your wire brush and go through, you should be able to see that wire brush down through there. I can see that through. Make sure that that's clear. If it's not clear, or if it's not big enough, your unit's going to surge real bad. Now these O-rings should be good too. These look like they're getting a little bit on the bad side, but I'm not going to worry too much about them. You can't buy that unless you buy a whole rebuild kit, and I think on these they're 50 bucks or something like that. Now that that's cleaned out, we can put it back in. And you want this to be about 1/4 of an inch on the other side. So that just stops your governor from coming back too far. I'm going to clean this out one more time. Never hurts. Give it a little bit more around the outside here where I missed some of that. Just so that buildup doesn't build up anywhere. And I'm also going to get the bowl. Get all that junk out of there. Again, this wire brush just takes all that out of there. Get us all 100% clean. The more you leave down in here, the more likelihood of this thing getting right back in the same boat. It happens when you put some more fuel in it. You know, most of this is caused from ethanol buildup, varnish, stuff like that from inferior fuel quality, but that stuff can still happen with good fuel quality if it's already got some place that's started in the unit. I mean, that's just so much better. Looking at that. Okay. Now, finish that guy up. Oh yeah, looking great. Nice and clean. No varnish anywhere, no gum. All right, so one more thing we're gonna look at here with the needle is we're gonna go ahead and run up along the tip here. We're gonna just go ahead and scrape that off with our fingernail, and you wanna make sure that you're feeling resistance. You don't want something too tacky. If it's tacky, if it's real tacky or soft, then you know it's gonna leak. It's not gonna seal right. It should be a perfect tip to it. If you're looking, it should be a perfect triangle there. So, Wouldn't say a perfect triangle, I guess, but it should be a perfect cone shape. So that goes back in nice and easy. If you put the spring back on, it just pushes straight up and over, sits like that. Spray that off one more time. Spray our carb out one more time. You can do this as many times as you like, but you want everything to be out of there. You don't want any kind of stuff left. If there's anything left in it, it can and will cause you issues in the future. So, now also you can check this by looking straight through with the light. If you see the light straight through, if you see a perfect circle down through there, you know it's clear. So that's good. You can also look down through this way. Sometimes they do get clogged this way. You can also use your torch tip cleaners to run it down through this way. That just cleans out the inside of that tube. Now I did miss a little bit that way, I guess, but something definitely came out. Alright, blow that off again. Put our emulsion tube back in. Put our main jet back in if I can find it. Now it just flew all over the place. Got it here. Put him back down in there. Nope. Usually like the utility screwdrivers work real well for this. They fit in there just about perfect. I've used one of those for years until I came across this one somewhere. Not really sure where it came from. I think a gift set or something from Christmas. You know how that goes. Alright. So now that we got that back in there, you want to make sure that gasket's good when you're putting it back on. If it's got any spots in it, it will leak it down there at the bottom. And if your bowl gasket comes out, you also want to make sure it's good. Otherwise, if you tip it at all, your unit will spill gas all over the place. Alright. Get back up top. We'll finish this thing up real quick. Now you always want to make sure that the gaskets on the back side here are good. So on this one, it's not moving at all. If the black plastic piece does not move, if it's not free, if it hasn't broke free from the aluminum side, I don't worry about it at all. If it has broke free, you want to replace that gasket also. That one's solid, it hasn't moved. We use, looks like it's a 951-11223. That's a Cub Cadet Troy Boat Remington part. Same thing as what's on here, it's just we don't use the LCT brand. Now that just goes back in. You want to make sure that this goes back under your metal piece here. Everything's free. You can go ahead, and I like to put the spring back in first. Spring in first. And then your governor rod, linkage. And then it snaps back onto there. Yep. Perfect. Now we're going to make sure that this fuel tank is clean and dry. Now, you don't know what kind of fuel's in here, so you want to make sure that it's 100% clean and dry. So, you can blow it out with air. That gets a lot of the stuff out. You can also use carb cleaner. We like to do that. It kind of dries everything up. It kind of disperses it. Now, if you're using carb cleaner, it will kind of make it nauseous in the room, so be aware of that. But you want to be sure that it's 100% dry when you're done with the unit. I didn't realize that we had a filter in there. Oh yeah, all kinds of gas still down in there. That or it's carb cleaner I just put in there, either way. But blow through that way, blow through the other way. You can blow through the fuel line on this side. And that'll clear that. When you blow backwards through it, that'll clear that. There's a filter on the inside of the tank. On the inside of that elbow or shutoff. Looks like we still got quite a bit left in there for some reason. to go ahead and take the thing out from under the front that we had it propped up with. Okay. Depending on what kind of fuel's in here, it may take varying amounts of time. Now right now, yeah, it's looking good. Looking nice and dry. You want to make sure that's all the way dried out though. If it's not, you'll have issues because that bad fuel is just going to gum this thing right back up. Move our fuel to the other side. Go ahead and put our line back on here real quick. Get us back up and close where we were originally. Okay. Fuel line back on. Now we can again pull it towards you. Push everything back together. Good to go. Oops. Forgot my little adapter piece here. Almost put them on without that. Now does that really do a whole lot? No, but you do want it on there. Alright. Okay, tighten them up evenly all the way across. Now you want to go ahead and put your piece back on. Start up top, get it back in the choke, or get the choke rod back in, and pull down, pull it around. Okay, looks like we're in a pretty good place there. Something just still doesn't seem quite right. I'm not sure what it is. That's looking good. Everything over here, I think it's up top. I'm catching on something. There we go. Is that better? Oh, I'm catching on the fuel tank right here, so I need to come under. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering what was going on there. I was catching on that fuel tank, but you're going to want to hook up your primer line at this point. Hook it back up down here. Get back up to the unit. Now if that primer line's cracked or anything like that, or if the fuel line's cracked, you can cut it back just a small bit on either piece, just to give you a new place to settle to. Now both of these look pretty good shape, so I wasn't worried about those at all, but if they're not in good shape, you can do that, and it just kind of gives you a better place for it to seat so it's not going to leak. Now when we go to put these back on, you want to make sure you start everything first. You don't want to tighten anything down until you've got all of them started. Okay. On some of these, depending on the model, the ones for the front are a little bit different size. Now this one isn't, but some of them on the front of the carburetor are different. So beware of that. Beware when you're taking them out where they're going to go back in at. Okay. Now for some reason it's fighting me up top here. It's not wanting to go back down like it was. So we're getting caught on the lip right on this edge. So all I'm going to do, I'm just barely going to pry in and push down at the same time. Well, not wanting to work there real well. Put my glasses off here. If I can see something a little bit better. There we go. I just pried up and under and just barely pried, pushed down, and we're at a spot where we should be again. So that's good. On this one, I'm going to start it just by getting 100% even here with my threads. All right. And you want to start all these by hand, because if you don't, you'll end up stripping them out. Now we can put our adapter back on. Oh shoot. Look at that. Adapter needs to go on before all this, so I just did all that for nothing since I didn't have the adapter on there. Don't be like me. Get everything back on there the way that it should be. I thought for sure that adapter would go back on there without that being the case, but apparently I was wrong. So again, come back up and out. Do it all over again. Okay. Well, it looks like I've bent that piece a little bit too, so that's pretty good. Dope. Alright. Now that we've got everything on there that's going to need to be on there, looks like everything's going together a little bit better this time too, maybe. Guess I shouldn't speak too soon. Before I've got it all screwed in. See what happens when that's the case. Now your spark plug wire here. Now it does have this piece that you can put back on. It does have this piece that you can put back on. Again, this really doesn't do anything, but we'll put it back on there like it's supposed to be before we put this on one last time. Okay. Under. Wow. Going pretty smooth for me, I'd say. If yours goes half as smooth as mine's going, you should have yours already back together and ready to go at this point, I'd say. Should have had it ready to go 5 minutes ago, but that's the way it goes sometimes. You can't always have them easy, you know. Sometimes they just don't. Hopefully with me doing this, whatever, 3 times for you, hopefully that'll give you a little bit better view and a little bit better knowledge as far as what you shouldn't do in order to get this thing back together right. And that's all I ever really try to do with the videos, is make it so somebody does their thing learns some knowledge and is able to get their stuff done without having to go pay someone a bunch of money to do it. And that's all we ever really try to do. If it saves someone some money, I'd say my job's done. All right. Can't see where we're lining up at or not lining up at, so there we go. Maybe. Okay. Tighten him down. Okay, so now we can put the throttle assembly back on. You want to do it this way as opposed to the way that it was on before. Go ahead and put our choke knob with the choke facing towards the start area. Everything there is working correctly, so that's good. We'll go ahead and throw some fuel in this thing. See how it runs. Oop. With that filter in there, apparently it's wanting to bubble up and out and over real easily. Got to go real slow to fill it up. All right. Get my old fuel off the table here so we don't have a big mess in a second. And let's see, so we're on choke, we're on fast. I'm not even going to worry about priming it at this point. This thing back to running great in a little bit of no time. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.